Welcome back to my channel, or to my channel if you are new here. My name is Haley. I make videos about books. I talk about books. I love books. And in this video, we are talking about my April wrap up. I am doing the same style of wrap up that I did last month. I really enjoyed doing it this way, so we're sticking with it for now. So in this video, we're talking about the books that I read during April, and these are going to be past clips that I filmed after I had read them, or close to after I had read them, so that I could give you the most accurate representation of how I felt about them and also what they're about, because it's not that I necessarily forget, but I typically forget the more specific things that I wanted to tell you. So with that being said, let's get into my April wrap up. Eleanor and Park is a YA romance following Eleanor and Park and their life throughout high school, their family life, very typical YA type of vibe. I think one of my favorite things about this book is their romance, and the thing that really obviously drives the book, but also just, I think that they're so cute together. I don't know what it is about them. I love them together. However, I do not love the people around them, and I don't love the blatant racism in this from the author and from the characters. There is very clearly stereotypes pressed upon these characters, and that is obviously the author's doing, and that has also been something that has been talked about a lot. I read it really fast and I did really enjoy it, but I can't overlook that, and I don't think anybody else should. I want to absolutely recommend this YA romance over other ones. I still, to this day, think that my top favorite one is I'll Give You the Sun, and something that you should pick up instead of this one. But if you have this on your TBR and you think that you're going to enjoy it, just know going into it that it is not the most well-rounded piece of literature, especially when it comes to YA books. If you watched my wrap up from last month, then you know that this was coming. This is the second book in the Finlay Donovan series. The first one is Finlay Donovan is Killing It. This one is Finlay Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. And I had so much fun with this. I definitely think that this one is second to the first one. The first book just exceeded my expectations, and maybe that's why I wasn't as in love with this. Once again, they're just so enjoyable and they're just such like a fun time, and I just love that more than anything. I realized I haven't talked about what this is about, so let's do that. So we're following Finlay Donovan, and she is a mom. She is recently divorced, and in the first book, she is dealing with her husband and fighting for custody for her kids. She's dealing with the fact that she has not written a book in a while, and her literary agent is literally trying to just get on her. She's like, you need to write a book. You're not gonna make me look bad. Go write a book. Naturally, Finlay's like, okay, I need to write a book. I don't know what I'm writing about though. So she starts to write a book based on her experience of falsely being hired as a hit woman. She's always in these most outlandish situations, and it's just so fun watching and I guess really reading. This book continues on after the events of the first book, and it's just a really fun time. We get to see her husband a little bit more in this. You start to be on his side a little bit in this, and I didn't particularly love that. I think her husband is a terrible person, and it almost plays him up as not being so. Like, that man cheated on her. He is super sleazy. Like, get away. Let's talk about Reprieve, because this was kind of a letdown for me. Reprieve is following a group of characters, and each of them are set up for the overarching idea of the book, which is a group of characters in an escape room that is all contact, and something happens and you're kind of privy to that right away, but you're not exactly sure everything that's happened, right? What you're really getting in this book is the backstories on these characters, and then in between you're getting them in the different escape rooms up until the final one. I thought this was gonna kind of be like a murder mystery type of vibe. I thought we were gonna be set in one place and it wasn't gonna be bouncing around. We weren't gonna be following these characters outside of this place, and that was not the case. What you're really getting is the characters and their stories and their life leading up to the event in the escape room. And then the escape room is kind of thrown in throughout. It is just not what I wanted more than anything, and not what I expected from this book. Knowing that, I think that I would have enjoyed it more, but still not as much as I was expecting to. Fever Dream is a really interesting book that I didn't care for. I thought I was going to really love this book. I thought I was bound to. This was one of the books that I was questioning putting on my 25 in 2025 because I've been putting it off for so long, and I really thought that I was going to enjoy it. Needless to say, I did not. Maybe it was just the wrong time for me to read it. It has been about a week or so since I finished it, and I don't remember nothing. So we're following this woman who is talking to the son of a woman that she met while vacationing, I believe. You're basically following her as she's talking about this son and her daughter, and something has happened to her daughter, and she is basically recounting her life with his mom and what's happened to her daughter, and she's on her deathbed, and it feels like a fever dream. The author did accomplish that. Maybe at some point, if I'm feeling bold enough or I feel like I should, I might pick it up and try to read this again because it is fairly short. I don't know. I didn't care for this, and it upsets me because I really wanted to. A Gift for a Ghost is such a interesting graphic novel. First of all, I absolutely love the imagery in this, and I just want to state that before I start roasting it. First of all, actually, hold on. Let me talk about what this is about. So we're in two different timelines. One is during 2016 and the other is during 1856. In 1856, we have a girl named Teresa, and all she really wants to do is write poetry, specifically horror poetry, and obviously during that time it was like get married, have kids, that type of stuff. Then in the 2006 timeline, we are following three girls who are creating this punk band that is absolutely terrible. It's very short. There's not much happening. You don't really learn too much about the characters, and honestly I was more intrigued by the 1856 timeline. They do kind of intertwine at some point. How though, cannot tell you. Not because it's a spoiler, which I guess it would technically be, but also because I have no idea. I don't know what's happening. I think that the idea of this was interesting, but the follow through was not executed well, and that is the primary reason why I don't really love it. Like I said, I really love how this looks. I think that just the pages and stuff in this are just super fun, and I love the color, and I just wish that I had enjoyed this more, but it is what it is. I picked this up on a whim, I read it on a whim, and it was just okay. All My Rage is told through three different points of view. You have our two present day characters who are teenagers in California, I believe. Yeah, in California. And then you have the mother of one of the characters, and she is telling her story as she is getting married and having her children and immigrating to the US. And it is a really fascinating and tender story. I was in love with this book. Absolutely, and I'm just so glad that I finally picked this up. It's something that I've been wanting to read for a really long time. This book is very much a contemporary novel, but there is a little bit of a romance between the two teenagers, and the way that their stories are intertwined and their friendship is just really well done, and I loved every bit of it. I think that this book is definitely something that you have to go into with the knowledge that there is a lot of deep and sensitive topics being discussed, so make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into. But as long as you're okay with that, pick this book up. It is so good. And even if you don't read YA, this is definitely something that I think you should pick up, because I'm so glad that I did, and I think you need to pick it up. Puck and Prejudice is a really interesting romance that deals with time travel, and it's fun and odd and really cringy at sometimes, but I couldn't look away. So the first chapter, we find our main character driving off of the road and ending up in a frozen lake. This then teleports him into 1812, where he meets our female main character, this woman right here. And she is kind of having the typical troubles of an 1812 lady, if you know what I mean. She is expected to have children and get married, not in those orders, but you know what I mean. And she has to do that, right? But all she wants to do is write a book. And then they end up getting introduced when she finds him in the pond that he has now teleported through. And she immediately believes him, and they're basically on a quest to get him back to his timeline, while ultimately they end up falling in love and also marrying for the convenience of her, because he's like, I'll help you, why not? You help me, whatever. And it is something, that's for sure. I'd say the first, I don't know, third of this book, I was in love with it. I think that it was so good, and I had such a fun time with it. And then it started to get really cringy and almost felt like the author was rushing the story, and also mostly just to get to kind of the more spicier scenes. There was no really build up to the relationship beyond basically going, we're gonna get married, and then that was pretty much it. And then they were in love. They were madly, deeply in love, and I didn't love that. What I would have preferred is for the book to take some time, you know, and really string out their relationship. But that's not what happened at all. And it just got to the point where the characters, both of them, felt really cringy and really just ridiculous. And so ultimately this book just really fell through for me, and I guess I'm okay with it, because honestly I didn't think that I was gonna absolutely love this book, but I didn't think that I was gonna hate it. And I don't hate it, but I would give it like a 2-star if I was rating it, because it wasn't it. But I had a good time, and sue me, but sometimes that's all you need in a book, is a good time. But will I recommend this book to anyone? No, don't pick it up. Do not. Educated is a memoir that is following this woman who had a very untraditional life. Throughout her childhood, she was homeschooled by her parents, who really didn't even homeschool her. They basically gave up, and she didn't have the basic education that most children in the US have. And she talks about in this book the way that she lived as a child, and helping her father with various tasks to make money, and her mother being a midwife, and then also on top of that helping her mother make herbal medicines. And she talks about having multiple siblings and her life with those siblings, and it's just a really interesting memoir. It's just so well written all the way around, and you're also just following her as she grows up and she realizes that this life is not necessarily normal, and her wanting to go to college and get a proper education, and essentially her being educated. And it's just a really well written book. I definitely, when I went into this, I thought this is probably going to be overrated. A lot of people talk about this book. It is highly rated on Goodreads, and a lot of people really love it. And I get it. I get the hype. It is just so good, and I'm so glad that I finally read it, because I've had this on my TBR for a really long time. At Dark I Become Lonesome follows our main character, who has had kind of a rough time. here recently. His wife has passed, his son has went missing, and he is just not doing okay. What happens in this book is basically he becomes, I don't even know how to describe what his job is. He basically helps people feel like renewed, a sense of renewal in life, I guess. By burying them alive and doing this ritual, he makes them feel kind of like alive. He makes them feel grateful for whatever circumstances they're going through. This book is just super odd. I am still not sure if Eric LaRocca is an author for me, but yeah, I can't stop reading their works, and I don't know. The entire time I was reading this, I was just like, what am I reading? What is happening? What did I get myself into? But it was like an okay time, you know? It wasn't anything terrible. It just was not what I expected it to be, but at the same time, like, I should probably have seen that coming, you know? Overall, it was an okay book though, and I'm glad that I picked it up and I read it, and that it was not a terrible time for me. I was pleasantly surprised by That Was Then, This Is Now, which is a really long title. This is the second S.E. Hinton book that I've read. I read The Outsiders in like 2021, I believe, and I really loved that book. I think that I really enjoyed this one. I don't know if I would say I love The Outsiders. This isn't about The Outsiders though. This book is following our main character, the narrator. His name's Brian, and his relationship with his best friend Mark, and his relationship with a girl named Kathy. And it's really just following him growing up. He's in his late teens and he is just over immaturity. He's ready to grow up, and you really see that through his relationship with Mark and how it is affected, and also how his relationship with Kathy is affected and the people around him. And I think more than anything, this deals with just growing up and what is expected of you, and the act of choosing your own way, even if that may not be the same as the people around you. And I had such a good time with this. It has such simplistic writing, but it is so good and just so well done. And it was a pleasant surprise, honestly, because I did not think that I was going to enjoy it nearly as much as I did. Let's talk about The Housemaid, because this book is crazy. How do I even put this into words? This book is bonkers. That's the best way I can describe it. It is just so ridiculous and such a fun time, and also kind of a waste of time. I don't know if I would ever necessarily recommend this book. We're following this woman who has just gotten out of jail within the last year, and she is living in her car, and she's trying to make ends meet whatever way possible. And she gets a job at this rich lady's house, and it's basically her taking care of the house, cleaning it, and taking care of the woman, Nina is her name, taking care of Nina's child. And she's also like cleaning, and she's just doing whatever needs done. Nina is a stay-at-home mom. She has the capacity to do all this, and she's also kind of a pain to work for. And then you're following later on in the book Nina and her point of view. The whole book you're like, something's up, something's going on, what is it? And when you finally get to what is happening, it's just ridiculous and a fun time. And I don't know what else to say about this. I have the second one on my physical TBR, and I'm contemplating whether I want to read it or not, because I just don't know if I want to read another book, let alone the third one as well in this series. Dolores Claiborne is probably the biggest treasure that I found this month. It is one of Stephen King's novels. This is the third one that I've read. I have read Carrie, and I just thought it was okay. It's nothing that I was absolutely in love with. If I was rating it, it'd be like a 3.5 stars. And then I read it and I DNF'd about halfway through. I just did not care. I preferred the movies. But Dolores Claiborne, however, I had a good time with this. I love this character so much. She's so ridiculous and just, I wouldn't say love, okay? But she's just so ridiculous, and the way that she talks, like, it's very character driven, this book is, because you're just following Dolores as she is yapping about these crimes that she has committed or been accused of committing, and she's telling her life story and what's happening, and she is just a yapper through and through. And I loved it. I find this book really interesting for the writing as well. It's so good all around, but the writing is really interesting because, for example, she'll ask for a glass of water and you won't hear the replies of the people who are talking to her that are in the room with her, which are these detectives who are trying to solve the case of the rich woman who she worked for, who has now passed away, and she is kind of accused of her murder. Dolores is. So basically the whole book, you're just trying to figure out if Dolores is actually guilty for killing Vera, which is the woman who she took care of. For 40 years she worked for her in different areas of her life and Vera's life, and she obviously had a really important relationship with Vera, and you see that develop throughout the book, and really as you get to the end you really contemplate whether Dolores could have actually done it. And the way that the book just wraps up as a whole is just, I really enjoyed it. And I'm so glad that I picked it up and I read it for the video that I was reading this in. And yeah, I now have a higher sense of faith in enjoying Stephen King's books. And for that, I'd say that this book is, that alone, a win. You Are Fatally Invited was not my all-time favorite murder mystery, but it was a fun time. In this book, we're following these 6 writers and the party planner of this murder mystery. So essentially all of these authors are thriller authors, and they get sent to this kind of holy grail of the thriller author's house. And he goes by Alistair, and you don't know who he is, but basically you're trying to figure out who he is while also these authors are getting murdered. And it's just a fun time. The way that this book is broken up is really interesting because what's happening is you're getting throughout the entirety of the book one consistent point of view. And then in between her chapters, you will get authors' point of views in each part. So one part will be all of one author's point of view, and then the next part will be another author's point of view, and then the next part will be another author's point of view. And it's just really interesting, and I enjoyed that because it didn't feel like we were bouncing around so much, and you were really able to stay with one author for a good amount of time to really understand them and figure out who they were. So overall, this book was just a fun time and something that I probably won't remember too much of, honestly, but if that's what you're looking for, I would say pick this up. It was pretty fast paced. I had a good time with it, and I think if you enjoy murder mysteries, then you're gonna enjoy this, because it just feels like a classic murder mystery while still incorporating new elements. And also on top of that, like, you have a map in this, and it's just like, it's super fun and it's definitely an interesting time. Let's talk about A Killing Cold, because this book was so interesting in the sense that I had no idea what was going on. Like, it just, you were just there. And it was an interesting time. So A Killing Cold is about our main character, who I cannot remember the name of at all, but it's about our main character, and she is recently engaged to this man who has money, the tell as old as time. But anyways, this family meets at this cabin twice a year, once during the summer, once during Christmas, and you are there with them as they are there. Can you tell I just woke up? So basically, our main character, though, had never really known her family. She doesn't really remember her parents. She was adopted, had a horrible childhood with her adopted parents as well. And she just is not, she's not about family. Needless to say, she would not be in Fast and Furious, that is for sure. With that being said though, she goes to this retreat, she's with her husband to be, and she starts having these memories come back to her. When she was a child, something had happened to her mother. She starts uncovering these secrets that this family has been hiding at this cabin that is directly related to her. The first book that I read of hers was just okay. It wasn't something that I thought I was going to fully remember and care about later on, but I still think about that book quite often now, and I don't know if that's going to be the same case with this book or not. My dog's looking. Goofy, what are you doing? What are you doing, you dork? You look so handsome. So pristine. So this is all to say that A Killing Cold was the last book that I read this month, and it was not a complete letdown, especially considering I went into it completely blind, not really knowing what it was about or anything. So in that regard, I guess it was a success. And you have officially made it to the end. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, don't forget to like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Tell me what your favorite book was that you read in April. I'm just curious. You can also give me recommendations based off of the books that I read in this and which ones I liked and which ones I disliked, so that maybe I can get an idea of other books that are closely related to the books that I enjoyed or hated. I'm fine with either one.